The chamber grew silent as the holographic display flickered with images of death and destruction. High Arbiter Kelvin watched another world turn dark, his silver hands trembling against the control panel. In just 3 weeks, the Krell swarm had consumed 3 entire colony worlds. 12 billion lives, gone like smoke in the wind. They will not negotiate, Commander Voss said, his voice flat and tired. Our weapons barely scratch their ships. They adapt to everything we throw at them. Kelvin looked around the council chamber at the faces of his fellow leaders. Fear lived in their eyes now. The Valerian coalition had built their civilization on peace, on diplomacy, on the belief that all conflicts could be resolved through conversation and understanding. For 2,000 years, that belief had served them well. Now it was killing them. The Krell will reach our core systems in 1 month, Voss continued. After that, this coalition will cease to exist. We will be food for their swarm. Council member Thyris stood up, her crystalline body catching the light. There must be someone who can help us. Some civilization with military power we can call upon. There is no one, another council member said. We are the most advanced species in this sector. If we cannot stop them, who can? Science Director Melwin raised one of his 4 hands hesitantly. There might be one option. Though it violates our oldest protocols. Every head turned toward him. Melwin activated a new display, and a blue and green planet appeared, rotating slowly in the holographic field. This is Terra, Melwin said quietly. The 3rd planet in a system we call Sol. We have been watching this world for 600 of their years. Kelvin felt his blood run cold. The quarantined world. The savage planet. They call themselves humans, Melwin explained. Our observations are disturbing. In the last 100 years alone, they fought 2 massive wars that killed over 100 million of their own kind. They built weapons capable of destroying their entire planet and came very close to using them. They have no unified government. They still maintain vast armies even during times of peace. Then why would we invite such monsters here? Thyris demanded. Commander Voss stepped forward. Because they survive. Look at their history. Ice ages, diseases, predators, natural disasters, and their own endless wars. Yet they are still there. Still growing stronger. Still fighting. They are very, very good at war. You want to bring killers to our peaceful worlds? Kelvin asked, though he already knew the answer. I want us to live, Voss replied. And right now, we need killers. The Krell understand only one language, and humans speak it fluently. The debate lasted for hours. Philosophers argued about principles. Military officers argued about necessity. Scientists presented data showing humanity's violent history in brutal detail. Wars that lasted years. Weapons that could level cities. A species that seemed addicted to conflict. But in the end, the choice was simple. Call for help from a dangerous species, or face certain extinction from an even more dangerous one. The vote passed by a single voice. Kelvin authorized the message himself, his hands shaking as he programmed the distress beacon. He included everything they knew about the Krell, all their tactical data, all their desperate attempts to stop the swarm. Then he launched it toward the Sol system and waited. The days that followed were agony. Krell forces advanced steadily through the outer systems. Evacuation orders went out for the frontier worlds. Panic spread through the coalition as citizens learned the truth. Their protectors could not protect them. Their advanced technology was useless against an enemy that adapted to everything. Kelvin barely slept. He spent his nights wondering if he had made a terrible mistake. What if the humans ignored the call? What if they came but proved to be as dangerous as the Krell? What if inviting them was simply choosing one death over another? On the 6th day, an answer arrived. The message was short, direct, and completely lacking in diplomatic formality. It came in dozens of languages simultaneously, but the meaning was clear in all of them. Distress call received. United Earth Defense Forces inbound. Estimated arrival in 14 standard days. Hold your positions. Protect your civilians. We are coming. Hold on. Below the text was an image. A patch showing a blue and green world surrounded by stars. The words on it read, Earth Defense Force, no one fights alone. Kelvin stared at the message for a long time. He felt hope rising in his chest for the first time in weeks. But he also felt fear, deep and cold. In 2 weeks, they would learn the truth about humanity. Whether humans were their salvation or simply a different kind of doom. The stars offered no answers. They simply watched and waited, as they had for billions of years, indifferent to the small creatures fighting for survival in the darkness below. Admiral James Parker stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the alien space station grow larger on the viewing screen. Behind his fleet of 43 warships, unfamiliar stars glittered in patterns he had never seen before. They had traveled farther from Earth than any human expedition in history, answering a call for help from beings they had never met. "Sir, the aliens are requesting we power down all weapons before docking," Lieutenant Mary Foster reported from her station. James shook his head firmly. "Tell them our weapons stay active until this threat is dealt with. Be polite about it, but make it clear." Dr. Rebecca Cole, the mission's chief scientist, looked concerned. "Admiral, this is first contact with an advanced civilization. Perhaps we should be more diplomatic." "Doctor, they called us because they are dying. They do not need pretty words right now. They need soldiers." James turned to his tactical officer. "Mitchell, show me the enemy positions." Commander Robert Mitchell pulled up the display. Red markers showed Krell ships spreading through Coalition space like a disease. Based on their movement, the core systems have maybe 3 weeks before the Krell arrive. Possibly less. Then we have no time to waste on ceremonies. The docking took 2 hours. When James finally stepped off his shuttle, he was struck by the beauty of the alien station. Everything seemed to glow with soft light. The architecture looked more like art than engineering. The air smelled sweet, almost like flowers. High Arbiter Kelvin waited at the end of a long walkway, surrounded by other alien leaders in flowing robes. "Admiral Parker, on behalf of the Valerian Coalition, we welcome you to our..." "Where is your command center?" James interrupted. Kelvin blinked in surprise. "We have prepared quarters for you. A reception this evening where we can properly discuss." "High Arbiter, the Krell will be here in 3 weeks. I need to see your defenses, your fleet, and your command structure immediately." A tall alien covered in metallic feathers stepped forward. "I am Military Commander Voss. I can take you to our strategic center." "Good. Let's go now." As they walked through the pristine corridors, Dr. Cole tried to apologize for James's directness. The Admiral ignored her. He was too busy studying the station. No blast doors. No security checkpoints. No armed guards anywhere. These people had built their entire civilization without thinking about defense. The command center looked more like a meeting room than a war room. Voss activated displays showing Coalition territory. The red markers indicating Krell positions made James's stomach tighten. The swarm was spreading fast. "We have fought 3 major battles," Voss explained. "All ended in complete defeat. Our weapons barely damaged their ships, and they seemed to learn our tactics within minutes." James watched recordings of the battles. His jaw clenched tighter with each passing second. "You are fighting them like you are trying to negotiate. Measured responses. Careful targeting. Organized retreats. We sought to minimize casualties while maintaining." "Commander, they are trying to eat you. There is no minimizing that." James pointed at the screen. "You are treating this like a border dispute. It is not. It is extermination." Kelvin looked sick. "Admiral, we are a peaceful people. We have ethics, protocols, codes of behavior that. And the Krell do not care about any of it." James faced them all. "I reviewed your military history on the way here. You have not fought a real war in 2,000 years. Your military is basically security guards with fancy ships. You have no experience with total war, no training for this kind of combat, and honestly, no stomach for what needs to be done." A crystalline alien named Thyra spoke coldly. "Then perhaps we made a mistake calling you." James met her eyes without flinching. "Maybe you did. But you called anyway because you are desperate. So here is the truth. My fleet can buy you time, but we cannot win this alone. Your people need to learn how to fight, and they need to learn fast. That means doing things that will seem brutal and wrong by your standards. It means accepting that people will die. It means making choices you never wanted to make." "We will not abandon our principles," Kelvin said firmly. "I am not asking you to abandon them. I am asking you to survive. There is a difference." James let that sink in. "Now, do you want my help or not?" The room fell silent. Finally, Voss spoke. "What do you need from us, Admiral?" "Every ship that can fight. Officers willing to learn. And acceptance that in the next 3 weeks, some of your people will die. We will try to keep that number small, but I will not lie to you. This is going to be bloody." Kelvin looked at the other council members. Some seemed horrified. Others simply looked tired and scared. Finally, the High Arbiter nodded slowly. We placed our lives in your hands when we sent that message. We will trust you, Admiral Parker. Good. Now bring me every junior officer who has actually fought the Krell. Not the ones with medals or high ranks. The ones who survived. An hour later, James stood before 30 young alien officers. They looked exhausted and frightened. One female Valerian with dark silver markings sat straighter than the others, her eyes sharp and focused. Name? James asked her. Officer Kessa. I survived the Tharos 4 evacuation. You got civilians out? Some. Not enough. Her voice carried anger and pain. James nodded. You are now my liaison officer. I need someone who understands what we face. He turned to address all of them. For the next 2 weeks, you will learn how humans fight. You will see tactics that disturb you. You will be asked to do things that feel wrong. But understand this. Every method we teach you was learned through blood. Human blood. We have been fighting for thousands of years, and we have become very, very good at it. He showed them footage from Earth's worst wars. They gasped at the casualties, the destruction, the sheer brutality of human conflict. We show you this not to horrify you, but so you understand what total war means. The Krell are bringing total war to your homes. The only way to survive is to meet them with equal force. An officer in the back raised a limb. How can we trust you will not turn that violence on us? James was quiet for a moment. Because we choose who deserves it. The Krell deserve all the violence we can bring. You? You called for help. And humans answer when someone needs help. That is what we do. He looked at each of them. Now let us get to work. We have 3 weeks to turn you into warriors. That evening, James stood alone looking at the alien stars. His communicator beeped. Parker here. Sir, long-range sensors detected Krell scout ships. They are coming. James closed his eyes. Activate the fleet. Battle stations. Looks like we do not have 3 weeks after all. What should I tell the coalition forces? Tell them to watch carefully. School is now in session. The Krell scout ships arrived in the middle of the night, 3 massive biovessels the size of mountains moving through space like predators stalking prey. Officer Kessa stood on the bridge of the coalition cruiser watching the human fleet respond. She had been assigned as a liaison, but really she was a student watching masters at work. The human ships are breaking formation, Captain Theron said nervously. That is not proper defensive tactics. Kessa watched the human vessels split into 3 groups, moving at speeds that would tear coalition ships apart. I do not think they are defending, Captain. I think they are hunting. Admiral Parker's voice came through the communication system, calm and steady. All coalition vessels hold position and observe. Do not engage. Human strike groups, weapons free. Show them what we brought. The 3 Krell ships moved forward with terrible grace. They were living nightmares, covered in organic armor that could adapt to any weapon, able to heal damage within minutes. The coalition had lost hundreds of ships to creatures just like these. The first human strike group attacked from below. What happened next made Kessa's breath catch in her throat. The human ship called Ironclad did not fire carefully aimed shots like coalition vessels did. It fired everything at once. Missiles, railguns, plasma weapons, and chunks of metal moving at impossible speeds. The Krell ship tried to adapt its armor, tried to harden itself against the attack. It did not matter. The ship did not just explode. It came apart like torn flesh, pieces scattering into space. By the Founders, Captain Theron whispered. The 2 remaining Krell ships immediately changed direction, trying to surround the humans. They flew straight into a trap. The other 2 human groups had circled around and now caught the Krell in crossfire from 3 directions. One Krell ship managed to close with a human destroyer called Relentless. It fired acid weapons that had melted through coalition hulls like paper. Kessa expected the human ship to retreat. It did not. The Relentless angled its armor to take the hits on its strongest sections and kept firing back. The human ship traded blow for blow with something twice its size, its hull burning and leaking air, but never stopping, never retreating. They are not running away, Kessa said quietly. They will be destroyed, Captain Theron said. Then the Relentless did something insane. It accelerated directly toward the Krell ship, engines at full power, like it meant to crash into the enemy. It is ramming, Kessa realized. They are going to ram it. At the last second, the Relentless fired every missile it had at point-blank range and turned away. The explosions tore open the Krell ship's armor, exposing the soft interior beneath. 3 other human ships immediately focused all their weapons on that wound. The Krell ship died screaming, a sound that came through every sensor as an organic wail of agony. The third scout tried to escape. It failed. Small human fighter craft swarmed it like angry insects, targeting its engines until it could not move. Then the larger ships destroyed it. The entire battle lasted 11 minutes. Kessa realized she had been holding her breath. Around her, every crew member on the bridge sat in shocked silence. That was a scouting engagement, Admiral Parker's voice came through. The real attack will come soon and will be much worse. Get your crews ready. Captain Theron turned to Kessa, his face pale. They fight like they are not afraid to die. Because they are more afraid of failing, Kessa said softly. 3 days later, the main Krell assault came at Meridian Station. 78 Krell bioships against only 47 human and coalition vessels. 3 million civilians were still on the station, unable to evacuate in time. Kessa watched from Admiral Parker's flagship as the Krell swarm entered the system. The human defensive positions looked random and chaotic, nothing like proper military formations. Then she understood. The humans had turned the entire system into a trap. As the Krell drove toward the station, human ships triggered hidden mines that exploded in careful sequence, forcing the Krell into a narrow corridor of space where human weapons could focus fire. It is a killing field, Kessa breathed. We call it strategy, Commander Mitchell said beside her. But the Krell kept coming. They were willing to sacrifice a third of their forces just to reach the station. And slowly, they were succeeding. They are going to reach the station, Mitchell reported. We cannot stop them all. Admiral Parker's face was calm but hard. Then we hold at the station itself. Order all civilian transports to leave now. And get me the Marine commander. A scarred human face appeared on screen. Captain Harris here, sir. Captain, how many Marines can you get on Meridian Station in 20 minutes? All 2,000, sir. But if the Krell board that station? They will board it, Parker interrupted. And when they do, I need your Marines to make them pay for every meter. Buy time for the civilians to escape. Captain Harris smiled, a cold expression. We will hold, sir. Kessa felt sick. You are sending them to die. I am sending them to fight, Parker said quietly. There is a difference. The Krell breached the station's hull in 14 places. Captain Harris and his Marines were waiting. The fighting that followed was captured on security cameras, footage that would haunt Kessa for the rest of her life. The Krell soldiers were monsters, 3 meters tall, covered in armor, with claws that could tear through metal. They had destroyed coalition forces easily in every previous battle. They had never fought human Marines before. The humans collapsed corridors, created choke points, turned every hallway into a death trap. They used explosives, fire, and close combat weapons. They fought with a ferocity that seemed inhuman. When positions became impossible to hold, the Marines did not surrender. They detonated entire sections, taking Krell forces with them. This is barbaric, Kessa whispered, watching humans and Krell die in brutal close combat. It is war, Parker said quietly. And it is buying time for those transports to escape. On screen, the evacuation proceeded. 3 million civilians streaming away from the station toward safety. Every minute the Marines held was another 1,000 lives saved. Captain Harris, status? Parker asked. The reply came between sounds of gunfire. Sections lost. Falling back to Central Hub. Estimate 15 minutes before we are overrun. Get your people out when I give the word. Sir, we did not come here to run. And I did not bring you here to die pointlessly. When I give the order, you evacuate. That is final. 10 minutes later, the last civilian transport cleared the danger zone. All Marines, evacuate now, Parker ordered. Harris, blow the charges. The Marines fought their way back to their ships, carrying their wounded, leaving none behind. As the last transport pulled away, Captain Harris triggered demolition charges placed throughout the station. Meridian Station and the thousands of Krell aboard it vanished in nuclear fire. The Krell fleet, having lost 40 ships and their boarding forces, did something they had never done in recorded history. They retreated. Kessa stood watching the enemy withdraw, tears streaming down her face. Tears of relief, of grief, of something she could not name. Coalition casualties minimal, Mitchell reported. Human forces took 90% of losses. 843 dead. Over 2,000 wounded. Nearly half the human force. All to save people they had never met before. High Arbiter Kelvin appeared on screen, looking aged and tired. Admiral Parker, your people sacrificed everything for us. They did their duty, Parker said simply. But this is not over. The Krell will return in greater numbers. We won this battle, not the war. Then we will be ready, Kelvin said firmly. Officer Kessa will train our forces in your methods immediately. Parker looked at Kessa. Ready to teach your people how to fight. Kessa wiped her tears and stood straight. She thought of the Marines dying in station corridors. Of ships trading fire to protect others. Of Admiral Parker calmly sending people to their deaths because it was necessary. Yes, sir, she said. I am ready. Dr. Rebecca Cole stared at the Krell specimen on her laboratory table, her heart racing with excitement and fear. The creature was dead, killed during the battle at Meridian Station, but its biology held secrets that could change everything. It is definitely a neural cluster, she explained to Admiral Parker and the other officers gathered around. The Krell are not just a hive mind. They have a hierarchy, a biological network. These nodes act like signal relays connecting the entire swarm. Parker leaned closer. Can we disrupt them? Better than that. We can poison them. Rebecca pulled up a molecular diagram on her screen. The Krell adapt so quickly that their neural chemistry is constantly changing. I have developed a compound that exploits that weakness. A cascading toxin. Once it enters their system, it spreads through the hive network and causes fatal seizures. Kessa, now wearing the uniform of Coalition Tactical Command, studied the data carefully. How do we deliver it? That is the problem. We need to inject it directly into a Krell command ship, one of the large vessels that coordinate the swarm. And we need to do it while the ship is actively connected to the hive network. Parker straightened. A boarding action then. A suicide mission, Kessa corrected. Admiral, Krell command ships are heavily defended. The internal environment is toxic. And once inside, the team would be trapped for hours while the toxin spreads. Not a suicide mission, Parker said quietly. A volunteer mission. There is a difference. 2 weeks had passed since Meridian Station, and the war had changed. The coalition military, trained by human instructors, won their first independent victory at the Rose Nebula. They used human tactics now, guerrilla strikes and coordinated ambushes, strategies that would have been unthinkable before. Captain Theron had lowered 15 Krell ships into a nebula filled with hidden weapons. The Krell lost every ship without destroying a single coalition vessel. Your people learn quickly, Parker told High Arbiter Kelvin during their briefing. Kelvin's expression was troubled. They are becoming warriors. Killers. Something we swore we would never be again. They are becoming survivors, Parker corrected gently. There is no shame in that. Kelvin pulled up a star map. Our scouts have located the Krell staging area, a system they call the feeding grounds. If we could strike there, we could end this war. But it would require a massive fleet assault. The casualties would be enormous. Unless we use Rebecca's toxin, Parker said. A small team could deliver it to a command ship and cripple their entire network. And the team? Kelvin asked quietly. Would probably not survive. Silence filled the room. I will lead the mission, Kessa said suddenly. Absolutely not, Kelvin replied immediately. You are too valuable as a trainer, as a symbol to our people. As a symbol, I need to show our people that we fight as hard as the humans do, Kessa interrupted. That we are not just students anymore. We are soldiers. Parker studied her face. You understand what you are volunteering for. I have watched human Marines die to protect my people. I have seen your warriors fight without hesitation. Yes, Admiral. I understand completely. Then you need a team. Volunteers only. And I am coming with you. Sir, you cannot, Commander Mitchell started. I can and I will. If we ask people to walk into hell, I will not do it from a command chair. Parker turned to Kelvin. With your permission, High Arbiter. Kelvin looked at them both, human and alien, teacher and student. Slowly, he nodded. May the Founders protect you. 3 days later, 25 volunteers assembled in the hangar bay. 15 humans and 10 coalition warriors, the best from both sides. Captain Harris checked the boarding craft, an ugly vessel designed to pierce ship hulls like a missile. She will get us inside, sir. After that, we are on our own. Rebecca arrived carrying cases of the neural toxin. Once you inject this into the ship's biological systems, it needs 4 hours to spread through the hive network. You must protect the injection point for 4 hours. If the Krell isolate that section, the toxin will not reach critical concentration. So we hold for 4 hours inside a ship that is trying to kill us, Lieutenant Foster said with dark humor. Sounds like fun. Parker looked at his team. 25 people about to descend into a nightmare. Once we are inside, there is no extraction, no backup, no escape. We hold for 4 hours no matter what. Some of you will not come back. He paused. But billions of people are alive because humans and Valerians learned to fight together. We are going to make sure billions more stay that way. The approach to the feeding grounds was terrifying. The boarding craft flew through swarms of Krell fighters, taking damage but staying on course. 30 seconds to impact, the pilot called out. The craft hit the command ship's hull at full speed. Shaped charges detonated, and they punched through layers of organic material, burrowing deep into the ship's interior like a bullet into flesh. Everyone out. Move. They poured into a corridor that looked like the inside of a living creature, because it was. Walls pulsed with strange light. The air was hot and wet. And in the distance, they could hear the Krell awakening. Rebecca and her team rushed to a pulsing conduit. This is it. Setting up the injection system now. Harris, establish a perimeter. Parker ordered. Defensive positions. They know we are here. The Krell came like a wave of nightmares. They poured from side passages, smaller than the boarding troops but just as deadly. The corridor became fire and screaming and the smell of burning flesh. A Krell lunged at Kessa. She dodged, fired point blank into its head, and kicked the corpse into 2 more behind it. Months ago she could not have imagined such violence. Now it was instinct, survival. Toxin is deploying. Rebecca shouted. But it needs to run continuously for 4 hours. If it stops, this mission fails. Then it does not stop. Parker roared, cutting down 3 Krell. No one gets past us. The battle became hell. The Krell came in endless waves, learning and adapting after each attack. The team fell back step by step, contracting around Rebecca's equipment. 1 hour passed. Then 2. Private Emma Stone died holding a passage, detonating her explosives and taking 6 Krell with her. A Valerian warrior named Thren sacrificed himself collapsing a corridor to buy precious minutes. 3 hours. Ammunition at 50%, Harris reported grimly. The Krell are adapting to our weapons. Switch to close combat, Parker ordered. Conserve ammunition. The next wave was met with blades and bare hands. It was brutal fighting with no room for mercy or hesitation. Lieutenant Foster went down with acid burns. 2 Marines dragged her to safety while Rebecca tried desperately to save her life and monitor the toxin. 3.5 hours. Admiral. Rebecca called. The toxin is reaching critical levels, but the Krell are trying to seal off this section. They are growing barriers in the corridors. How long until we can leave? 30 minutes. The toxin needs to fully spread. Parker looked at their shrinking numbers. 15 left, maybe fewer. Then we hold for 30 more minutes. The walls themselves began attacking them. Bioweapons emerged from the ceiling. Acid. Blades. Tendrils that grabbed and crushed. The ship knows what we are doing. Kessa shouted. It is fighting back. A massive section collapsed, separating Parker and Harris from Kessa and Rebecca. Kessa, status. Parker called through his communicator. Cut off. But we can still protect the injection point from this side. Parker made the hardest decision a commander ever makes. Then hold there. We will keep them off your back from here. Admiral. That is an order. Keep Dr. Cole alive. Keep that toxin flowing. The 2 groups fought separately, connected only by voices over communication devices as minutes crawled by. Captain Harris took a hit that tore through his armor. He kept fighting with one arm until a Krell pulled him down. His last sound was laughter as he triggered a grenade. 10 minutes left. Toxin deployment complete. Rebecca's voice came through. The command ship's neural network is collapsing. It worked. Then get out. Parker ordered. Everyone fall back. But the dying ship had one final surprise. The entire structure began convulsing. Walls cracked. The light died. The Krell command ship was taking its corridors with it as it died. Parker and his 2 surviving Marines fought toward Kessa's position. They found her with 5 survivors including Rebecca clutching her equipment. The extraction craft was crushed. Destroyed. Backup plan? One Marine asked. We find another way out, Parker said. Through a rupturing hull section, they saw a Krell fighter craft drifting nearby, its pilot dead from the toxin. Can anyone fly that? Parker asked. I can try, said the pilot, Lieutenant Wright. They fought to the hull breach and jumped into space one by one. The suits gave just enough propulsion to reach the fighter. Right interfaced with the organic controls. The craft shuddered to life and pulled away from the dying command ship. Behind them, the command vessel went dark. Through the viewport, they watched the effect ripple outward. Other Krell ships faltered, their coordination failing. All forces, Parker broadcast, the command ship is down. The Hive network is disrupted. Attack now. The human and coalition fleets swept through the confused Krell forces. What should have been a desperate defense became a rout. The Krell swarm broke and fled for the first time in history. The captured fighter limped into coalition space 12 hours later. 8 survivors out of 25. The dead had bought victory with their blood. The Krell are in full retreat, Kelvin told Parker in the medical bay. We won. At what cost? Parker asked, looking at the injured. High. But millions were saved. Kelvin placed a hand on Parker's shoulder. You taught us how to fight. More importantly, you taught us why. Parker looked at Kessa, who had lost an arm but was alive. Your people did it themselves. We just showed them it was possible. No, Kessa said weakly. You showed us it was necessary. And that sometimes, the greatest courage is knowing when to fight. Retry K. 6 weeks after the Battle of the Feeding Grounds, long-range scouts discovered something that changed everything. Commander Mitchell pulled up the data on Admiral Parker's screen, his face troubled. Sir, you need to see this. The Krell are not just retreating. They are running. And now we know why. The display showed a region of space beyond Krell territory. Energy readings appeared that made the Krell look like a minor threat by comparison. Something massive. Something ancient. Something that frightened even the Krell. What is that? Officer Kessa asked, studying the mysterious signatures with her one remaining arm. Something that scares the Krell, Dr. Rebecca said quietly. Which means it should terrify us. High Arbiter Kelvin entered with the entire Coalition Council. The mood was heavy with tension. We have seen the same data, Admiral. The question now is what do we do about the Krell themselves? What do you mean? Parker asked carefully. Council member Fires stepped forward. We have tracked the main Krell fleet to their home system. They are wounded, weak, and vulnerable. Admiral, your people have developed biological weapons that target Krell specifically. We could end this threat forever. The room fell into heavy silence. You are talking about genocide, Rebecca said, her voice sharp. Killing an entire species. A species that has murdered billions, Commander Voss argued. That would kill billions more if given another chance. Parker looked at each council member slowly. Is this really what you are asking? For humanity to help you exterminate an entire race? Kelvin's face showed pain and conflict. Admiral, we are peaceful people. But we have learned that sometimes peace requires difficult choices. The Krell cannot stop. Their biology forces them to consume and expand endlessly. How many more civilizations must die before we act? And if we destroy them completely, what does that make us? Kessa said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. The humans taught us to fight, yes. But they also taught us why we fight. Not to become monsters ourselves, but to protect the innocent. If we wipe out the Krell entirely, are we any better than they are? They are a plague, Thyra said firmly. You cannot negotiate with a disease. No, Parker said slowly. But you can cure it. Rebecca's eyes widened with understanding. The neural toxin. Admiral, if we could modify it, not to kill but to change their brain chemistry. You want to change their fundamental nature, Voss interrupted. Rewrite their biology. How is that different from killing them? Because they would still exist, Parker replied. Changed, yes. But alive. And maybe capable of living peacefully with others. Kelvin looked between them. Is such a thing even possible? Rebecca pulled up her research. Theoretically, yes. The Krell adapt so quickly. If we introduce a modified toxin that changes their hive mind, shifts them from aggressive expansion to something sustainable, it could work. It would take generations to fully take effect, but it is possible. Or it could fail, and we waste our only chance to end this threat forever, Voss said. The debate lasted for hours. Parker listened to both sides, understanding the weight of what they discussed. Humanity had faced similar choices throughout its bloody history. Moments where the line between justice and murder became blurred. Finally, he spoke. I have spent my whole life studying human military history. And you know what I learned? Our greatest victories were not the wars we won, but the wars we prevented. The enemies we turned into allies. The cycles of violence we managed to break. He pulled up images from Earth. After our worst war, we could have destroyed our enemies completely. Instead, we helped rebuild them. They became our strongest allies. It was not easy. It took decades. But it worked. The Krell are not human, Thyra said coldly. No, Parker agreed. But they are alive. And that should mean something. At least it should mean something to us. Kelvin closed his eyes in thought. Then we attempt the cure. But Admiral, if it fails, if the Krell recover and attack again. Then we finish it, Parker said grimly. But we try mercy first. Because that is what separates us from them. We choose compassion when we can, violence when we must, and wisdom to know the difference. The operation required an entire fleet, not for combat but for precision. The Krell home system was a massive living structure, a hive built over thousands of years. Deep inside was the Krell Prime Intelligence, the central mind that guided the entire species. The combined human and coalition fleet arrived and found the system eerily quiet. The Krell had pulled back all forces to protect their homeworld. Defensive formations around the planet, Mitchell reported. But they are not attacking. Just waiting. They know they cannot win, Kessa said. They are making a final stand. Parker opened communications to the fleet. All ships hold position. Do not fire unless fired upon. He turned to Rebecca. Are you ready? She held the case containing the modified toxin. The delivery system will penetrate deep into the hive. Once deployed, it should reach the Prime Intelligence within hours. Hope, Voss muttered. We are betting everything on hope. We have bet on worse, Parker replied. The delivery missile launched toward the Krell homeworld. The Krell defenses could have easily destroyed it. Instead, they let it pass. They are not stopping it, Mitchell said in disbelief. Maybe they understand this is their only chance at survival, Rebecca suggested quietly. The missile penetrated the hive structure and detonated, releasing the modified toxin into the Krell biological network. Then came the waiting. Hours turned into days. The fleet maintained position, weapons ready but not firing. Slowly, changes appeared. Krell defensive formations dissolved. Ships that had been ready for combat began moving in exploratory patterns instead. Communication attempts came from the surface, primitive but unmistakable. Rebecca worked desperately to decode the messages. On the fourth day, she brought Parker a translation, exhausted but excited. They are asking what we did to them. The Prime Intelligence is still aware, still alive, but its imperatives have changed. The drive to consume is being replaced by something else. They want to understand why. What do we tell them? Kelvin asked. Parker thought carefully, then composed a simple message. We gave you a chance. What you do with it is up to you. The journey home took 2 weeks. The Krell situation remained uncertain. The modified toxin was working, but it would take years to know the full results. Monitoring stations were established, staffed by coalition personnel and volunteer Krell who were curious about their new existence. When the fleet returned to Valerian Prime, something remarkable waited. The entire coalition had built a monument in space above the capital world. A massive structure showing human and coalition ships flying together. On its surface, carved in every language, were the names of every being who died in the war. High Arbiter Kelvin spoke at the dedication ceremony, his voice broadcast to billions. We called for help, and humanity answered. They taught us how to fight, yes. But more importantly, they taught us why. Not for conquest or pride, but to protect those who cannot protect themselves. He gestured to the monument. These names represent beings from 200 worlds. Different species, different beliefs, different cultures. But united in purpose. United in sacrifice. Parker stood with his surviving crew. Kessa beside him, her prosthetic arm already feeling natural. Rebecca quietly crying. Mitchell and the others standing at attention. The Coalition Council has decided, Kelvin continued. We offer humanity full membership in our alliance. Parker tensed, expecting this moment. However, Kelvin said with a slight smile, Admiral Parker has informed us that humanity respectfully declines formal membership. Surprised murmurs ran through the crowd. Instead, humanity has proposed something different. A mutual defense pact. An alliance of independent civilizations who pledge to answer when others call for help. The Interstellar Defense Coalition. He looked directly at Parker. Because forcing unity defeats its purpose. But choosing to stand together, that is true strength. The ceremony ended with a military demonstration by coalition forces, showing tactics they had learned and adapted. They were not copying humans anymore. They had made the lessons their own. That evening, Parker stood alone looking at alien stars. Kelvin found him there. You are leaving tomorrow. Earth is calling us home. There are other threats out there. Other people who might need help. Will you return? If you call, we will answer. That is the promise. Kelvin was quiet. Why did you really decline membership? Parker smiled. Because you do not need us anymore. You can stand alone now. And because humanity still has growing to do. We are good at war, Kelvin. Too good. Better we stay at arm's length. Let us be the ones you call when monsters come. But do not invite us into your house permanently. Kelvin laughed. You are more than warriors, Admiral. You are also dreamers and builders and protectors. So are the Krell now, apparently. Or they might be. That is the hope. They stood together watching the stars in comfortable silence. Your people have a saying, Kelvin said. No one fights alone. That is right. It works both ways. When humanity needs help, we will answer. I know, Parker said. That is what allies do. The human fleet departed the next morning. Kessa watched them go, her prosthetic arm heavy but purposeful. She wanted to remember. Wanted the weight to remind her of what was sacrificed and what was gained. Thinking of joining them? Voss asked. No. My place is here. We have warriors to train, a military tradition to build. The humans started it, but we need to finish it. Make it our own. As the last human ship disappeared, Kessa made a silent promise. The coalition would be ready next time. Would stand on its own. Would answer when others called. Because that was what humanity had really taught them. Not how to kill, but how to live. How to be strong enough to protect the weak. Brave enough to face darkness. And wise enough to know when mercy was the greater courage. Aboard the Valiant, Parker finished his report to Earth Command. The galaxy is larger and more dangerous than we imagined. But it is also full of hope. And sometimes, that is enough. He looked at the infinite stars, full of both danger and wonder. The galaxy had learned something important. That humanity's greatest weapon was never violence. It was their refusal to let others suffer alone. And now the coalition understood that too. No one fights alone. Never alone.